The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everybody. Sorry about the delay. We had some technical difficulties, but I see that 5 of you are on the call right now. Amanda, Dominique, Peter, Sophie, thank you for joining us. We are going to get started now, just going over the student assistant position. Thank you for joining us, and we're really excited that you guys will be part of our student assistant community. So just as a quick introduction, I'm Marley Stein. I'm a little sick, so I've lost my voice, so bear with me. I'm the off-campus study coordinator. For those of you that are going on some of the programs that I manage, you may have already heard from me. And I work with our program management of the different programs in Latin America and Europe. And then we also have Jen Himes.
Hi, everyone. My name's Jen, and I'm the Marketing Communications Coordinator at ACM. And I will be working primarily with the communications assistants, and we'll get to talk more later when we go over specifics of your responsibilities. So let's get started.
We have all of you muted right now just to eliminate any outside noise, but if you do have a question while we're talking, feel free to add it in the chat box or the questions, or if you're having any audio problems, please let us know. All right, so a brief introduction. What are the benefits of the student assistant position? First and foremost, to help provide financial assistance to offset some of those expenses that you'll incur while you're living in your location. Also, work experience connected with off-campus study experience, and to enhance your resume. You get what you put into the position, and that's something we really wanted to emphasize this semester with all of you. What are the skills that you want to develop? You'd like to be able to use. How would you like to be able to use this work experience and the type of projects that you work on to use as examples for future positions? And me and Jen, we're both here to help you develop those skills. So feel free to keep open lines of communication. Talk to us about what you want to improve, concerns or experience you might not have that we might be able to help you with. We want this to be a beneficial long-term experience that will apply long-term for you as well. So to help you manage your daily tasks and what you're working on, we created this Google site. So I'm going to do a brief walkthrough right now. Yeah. So you should all be able to see that. So this is the main page. I added some announcements. The January 9th, 5:30 p.m., we're all here. You all got the onboarding email, which goes over what you need to submit to me. Actually, all of you who are on here were really on top of things and submitted them, so thank you. Overview of your responsibilities, but you can also find that in your student handbook, and then link to the payment procedures page. So as you can see on the Google site, some of you might have already explored this. We have the task log, so it'll go through just your responsibilities as far as hours to keep track of, and then we have spring 2018, an individual log for each of your positions. So I'll just go through one of them so you can see. I'll go in more details later about how to log your hours. Contact information, just a quick cheat sheet of who your on-site supervisor would be, what both myself and Jen can help you with. Payment procedures. I have the forms that I sent you in the email. For whatever reason you lost that email, it's uploaded here, as well as a link to the W-9 form. So please send those along to me as well. Jen will go over this a little bit more for those communications assistants, uploading instructions for photos and documents, and then it's also, there's a direct link to the Google Drive that we'll be using. And then lastly, resources. So as you're working, there's a couple of forms you'll need to fill out, and Jen will go over those with you, but all right, sorry about that. Okay. This is where you can find access to those blank forms as well under resources on the Google site. To log into the Google site, you'll have to use the Student Assistant login, which is located in your handbook, and we included that later in the webinar as well. Or if you prefer to use, if you aren't able to access it, just let us know and we can work that out. All right. So back to the, okay. So next, responsibilities. So you will complete the tasks and responsibilities outlined in your position description. The position descriptions are located in two places, both on the offer letter that we sent you a couple of days ago and as well in your handbook. These tasks and projects are not exhaustive, so you will definitely be asked from time to time, especially with the administrative assistants, to perform additional tasks not included in the initial posting. So an example of this for both would be maybe the administrative assistant would work on a student resource to have on site that might not be the day-to-day clerical or more filing work that you would be working on with your on-site supervisor. An example of this for the communications assistants, if Jen was working on a project focused on the homestay experience and she wanted to hear your perspective on that, she might come and reach out to you with a couple of questions regarding that. Okay. So you'll need to check in via email with me, the off-campus study coordinator, in addition to your supervisor. So that would be Jen for the communications assistants, as well as the on-site supervisors. The most important thing that I want to emphasize to you is that you will be representing ACM in a professional and appropriate way. These are the big important responsibilities, but there's a couple others that are outlined in your handbook, but I will go over. One thing I really want to stress the importance of is communicating consistently with your on-site supervisors and off-site ACM staff. So administrative assistants will report to their on-site supervisor and myself, and communications assistants will report to Jen and myself. So if you're having trouble, you're really overwhelmed with the class curriculum, or you're just having a harder time transitioning to the program, please reach out to us. We're open and we understand that those things happen. And if we're able to help you, assist that in any way, that is something that we can do for you. Another thing is that we don't want, if you are having a problem, we really want your work to be spaced out evenly throughout the semester. So while it's okay for your work to vary week to week, depending on field trips and what's going on, sorry, my voice, depending on field trips and what's going on, it should be consistent. We don't want to hear about a great field trip you had 3 weeks after the fact, because we want to make sure that our prospective students, the faculty and staff back at your home campuses are being informed and everything is up to date.
All right, I'm going to give Marley's voice a break for a few minutes. So I'll take over and talk about the Gmail account. We have created a Gmail account that is especially for student assistant use, and communications assistants, you all are going to be the primary people to use this to upload photos, interviews, etc. to the Google Drive. But there also may be times when administrative assistants will submit materials to the Drive. As Marley mentioned, there might be some projects that arise throughout the semester that we will ask for your input, and if administrative assistants do participate in any of those projects, you have the login information as well, which, as you see, is located at the bottom of this slide. And the Google Drive folders are already pre-created, so hopefully it's pretty easy for you to organize your submissions. And communications assistants, since you all will be using this Gmail account more frequently, I will go over the specifics of how to upload everything later on in this webinar. So there's just a couple things we want to ask you not to do with this Gmail account. So please do not reset the password for any reason. This is just simply because, as you know, we're sharing this account across multiple students. And so if you change the password, then the rest of the students can't get in. So please, if you're locked out, just contact Marley at mstein@acm.edu for the password, or it's also located in the handbook. But if for whatever reason you can't find the handbook or you don't have access to internet, feel free to just shoot us an email. And so also, please just do not change or alter any account settings or send any inappropriate emails or personal emails and documents from the account. We're really just trying to keep this solely for student assistant projects. So we all know that you know to use it for professional purposes, but we just want to make it an emphasis so we're all on the same page. All right, back to Marley.
All right, so the academic administrative assistant positions. You'll be responsible for cataloging, updating, and organized databases, assisting with planning logistics and orientation, handling library materials. This will definitely vary from site to site because some of our sites don't have a library. Helping faculty prepare class materials, contributing at least one blog entry to the communications assistant blog. So if there's something that you're particularly engaged with or enthusiastic about, let the communications assistant know, and then they could highlight you in one of their blog posts. And there are some that can count towards your hours, as well as there'll be a raffle for participants at the end of the semester. You can also complete one of the optional projects, My Cultural Transition, which we'll go into more depth in later, or a student guide. We also understand that every administrative assistant has different skills and strengths, and we really want this to be an organic position. So please let us know if there's something that you are enthusiastic about improving or contributing so that we can adjust your priorities as such.
And then, as mentioned several times, communications assistants, we will go and do a deep dive later, but as a general overview, you all are responsible for generating written and visual content for ACM communications channels. So basically this means that the interviews you conduct with other students, the photos you send us, and the blog posts that you write will be repurposed by us in a variety of ways. So they might be used, linked to from our website, or used in email communications, or even posted on social media. So there's really a variety of ways that we reuse student content, and there is information in the handbook if you are curious to know how ACM uses student content in its marketing materials. There's a section in the handbook that especially highlights those examples of those pieces. And so in addition to creating your own content, we are also encouraging you to collect content, especially blogs and photos from other students on your program. And if possible, as Marley mentioned, administrative assistants and communications assistants, we encourage you to collaborate together to create content throughout the semester.
We had a question about the Google site. The Google site we just had pop up for a second, from Sophie, but now it's not on, so you should only be seeing the PowerPoint right now, but we'll pop it back up at a later point so you can take a look at it. If not, the link to it is in your in the email I sent you, and I'm happy to go over that with you at a later point as well. Okay. So the policy, the Code of Responsibility. I trust that all of you have already read the ACM Comprehensive Release Form for your programs. If not, that would be not a good thing. But we just want to mirror that with this position. By participating in an ACM program, you are held to the ACM Code of Responsibility, and you are a representative of your home campus, the ACM, as well as the U.S. when you're operating in these different countries. So violating any of the policies that we outlined for just participating in that program would also be grounds for termination of the student assistant position. If an incident arises, we will definitely give you a warning and discuss it with you, and you would be sent to the student conduct committee, and that would be whether it's an incident that impacts your participation in the program, it would also impact your position as a student assistant. Professionalism. You are expected to conduct your daily tasks and responsibilities in a professional manner. This includes being respectful of your supervisors, peers, and other faculty and staff. One thing to emphasize is that when you are writing about a particular host culture, or you are being the representative of the ACM Program Center when working with locals, please be respectful of and mindful of the host country and its people. If you're not sure if it's appropriate to represent a group in a certain way or to speak in a certain manner, please reach out to your on-site staff as well as myself or Jen, and we can help you navigate that situation. We want you to be comfortable and to really be able to take advantage of all these opportunities that you can write about and opportunities to interact with the host country, locals.
Sure. All right. So, oops. Sorry, guys. Here we go. One thing we just want to mention is that with this position, we really encourage you and ask you to be flexible in adapting to this role and really staying in constant communication with us. This does not mean we need daily email updates, but if you're really experiencing an issue or you have questions, please reach out to us, and especially as you're operating in a location that is probably unfamiliar to you, we encourage you to just really have a flexible attitude, and we're here to help you work through any challenges.
Yeah, and also when you are working with new people, learning a new culture, it's important to be positive and just try to think about the bigger implications of any of the work that you might be doing. Okay, logging hours. So Sophie will be able to pull up the Google site again. You're required to log your hours on the Google site. So this is really important because this is how I get to pay you, and that's something I really want to do on time for you. So each student has their own task log. Please track the hours accurately and honestly. So I know that it takes different amount of people, different amount of times to do things, but really put into perspective truly how long it took you to do that. Let's say you go on a safari for 6 hours, and that's part of your program, to be on the safari for 6 hours. Yes, you'll be taking pictures throughout that time and then later uploading those photos. I wouldn't put 6 hours because you won't have been taking pictures the entire time that you're on that safari. So maybe 1 hour or 2 hours for taking photos and uploading them. That task log will be viewed by myself and your supervisor. In order for us to pay you, you must complete all required hours by the end of the semester. So for semester assistance, that's 30 to 35 hours. For half semester assistance, that's 15 to 20 hours. One thing that I mentioned earlier is that you need to make sure your workload is spaced out appropriately. So in order to pay you, which is my next slide, you will need to have completed at least 15 hours by the time the halfway point of your program. So about 7.5 weeks into your program, since all of the programs are 15 weeks long. I'm going to open up the task log now. Okay, so if you scroll down here, I'm going to open the Botswana one. If you click on it, Dominique, you see that you have your task log right here and ready to go. So date, hours worked, the task project, and then any notes. So that'll just a way for you to keep tabs. Oh, I'm halfway done through this project. I put 2 hours, but I'm not quite there yet. Or these are photos specific to this excursion. Anything you want to keep track of there, or notes to your supervisor, we look at those. So the way you would edit this is you would just click up here on the little edit sign. And then type photos of excursion, the date, the hours worked, 2 hours. And then when you're done, you would just go up here and click save. I won't save it because Dominique, you didn't do that yet. So just go ahead and save it there. So pretty straightforward. It's similar to a word processor once you click edit, and that's the only thing you'll really need to be editing on this site. Okay. So moving on to payment procedures. So you'll be paid twice per semester. Payment one will be around March 30th. It'll vary just depending on when your program program halfway point is, and the calendar. So you'll need to have completed at least 15 hours by the halfway point of your program. If there's any reason you aren't able to do that, please reach out to us and we can make a new plan for you to be able to get all of your hours in. But even so, you don't want to do 15 hours the week before you have to get 15 hours. Try to do maybe 1 to 2 hours a week. Some programs prefer to do 2 to 3 hours one week and then the next week no time. So really try to budget your time accordingly. Administrative assistants, you'll have a weekly schedule with your on-site supervisor, and in the past it's been 1 to 2 hours a week, sometimes 3. And then the communications assistants, you really have the ownership and the agency to make your own schedule. So we're trusting you with that, so please try to keep it consistent as best as possible. And then the second $250 will be in mid-May upon completion of your program. I will get that to you as soon as all of the task logs are completed, and once those are up to date, we can process your payment.
All right. So all these forms listed here are also linked on the Google site. So you can find links to them, and as well as in the acceptance emails that you got from Marley. So please turn in these forms as soon as you can. A lot of them are really important for you to be able to get paid and just to obviously do your position well. So just please get those in and let Marley know if you have any questions about those forms.
And to confirm that you've accepted the position. So
That too. That is also important. So also here's, if you ever need to refer to who to contact, here is your list of on-site supervisors if you are an academic or administrative assistant.
Also for communications assistants, they know the program really well. Your the on-site supervisors or directors, and if you're having trouble coming up with content or getting the access to the photos that you want or information that you need to plan some of the interviews or photos, reach out to them because they're there to support you as well. Okay, who do you talk to? So you talk to me when my voice is a little bit better. So if you reach out to me with questions about administrative tasks or logistics related to onboarding, logging hours, uploading documents, anything payment related, since I'm very familiar with a number of the programs, if you are unclear about, you're struggling for ideas of what to write about on the blog related to your specific ACM program, reach out to myself, as well as Jen, who will be able to give you some more stylistic tips as well. And any adjustments to your current responsibilities or additional projects beyond your primary position responsibilities. So if there's something you want to take leadership on or a new task that you are having that you want to initiate, please let me know. This also goes with your time management. So if you're struggling with how much time to put towards photo uploads or interviews, let us know and we can work with you on that.
And then you can reach out to me if you have any questions about facilitating a student interview, taking photos, using WordPress, which is the platform you will be blogging on, and then anything about writing style or content, especially for the blog, but really anything content related, I'm here to help you and I'm happy to help. So my email is right there, and we will talk more later as well in the webinar.
Yeah, and as Jen mentioned to you, she will check in with you, give you some feedback on what your work you've already done. So really take that to heart and really try to implement it into your future submissions.
All right, so kind of encapsulating your first steps as student assistant in general. Please complete the release form that we mentioned, which is located on the resources page of the Google site. This gives ACM permission to use your content. So administrative assistants and communications assistants, please complete this form. And it's a Google form, so you don't need to email it to us, which hopefully makes things easier. We had just featured a couple slides ago all the paperwork that needs to be completed, so please turn in the required paperwork to Marley. And communications assistants, another thing that we would like you to do as your first task is to complete your bio for the ACM website. We will link to your blog posts from our website, and this is just a profile that will have your photo and some information about yourself that can go along with your blog. So when people visit our site, they can get to know you before they start reading your blog posts. And so all the information for that profile can be found in the Other Projects folder in the Google Drive folder under your program. We'll just have also a little social media plug. Follow ACM on social media, so you can either tag us with ACM EDU and hashtag ACM Study Away. So throughout your time off campus, if you have a public social media account and you want to share what you're doing with us, feel free to interact with us. And one of the first ways you can interact with us is when you get on site. Whether you're arriving on site in Chicago or Botswana, feel free to share a photo with us on Instagram, Twitter, after you arrive.
Okay, so mentioning those additional projects, these are projects that either the communications assistant can work on or the administrative assistant. It might be more fitting in your time to do this probably maybe the second or third week, just because you'll have had some time on site to reflect. There's a number of details in the handbook on this, but it's really an opportunity for you to reflect on your personal cultural adaptation and the transition that you experience to a new environment. This is something that we would hope to incorporate in the Canvas site that all of you went through, just to give students the opportunity to see the adjustments that students like themselves are going through. To do this, just send us a 1 to 2 minute script of what you plan to say, and you can either do it with a video or you could do some photos, including the audio. There's more guidelines on this in the handbook, and as you're working through it, feel free to reach out to myself, and I can provide some guidance on completing that project. Okay, the student guidebook. So we really want to know what your life is like as a student. We plan all these activities for you and arrange the curriculum and the field visits, but you're off doing a bunch of things that we don't know what you're, and we know what you're doing, but that you are investigating on your own. So if you could make a guidebook with tips and tricks for getting around the city, how to get involved in the community and connect with locals, where to eat and get coffee, what to know about classes and living arrangements before you leave. What did you wish you knew that we didn't necessarily think to share with you? And anything else you think. You can work in collaboration with me, but really we want you to have creative liberty on creating this guidebook. And if you have additional questions or need further guidance, let us know. This is also a great opportunity for you to collaborate with between the administrative assistants and the communications assistants. Also talk to other people on your program, so get the input from your fellow peers. The communication assistants might be able to tell you, oh, I've got great photos that go with where to eat, or I have great photos of students interacting with locals. So really try to work on this in your spare time, and we trust your creative vision, and we're here to support you in that.
All right, so right now we're going to open up the floor for questions. Just so you know, there's another section of this webinar that is specifically for communications assistants, and we'll answer a lot more questions that I'm sure communications assistants will have. Please stick around if you are a communications assistant, but if you are not, after this question session, you can log off, and then we'll take it from here. But midway through, are there any questions that anyone has about anything covered so far?
Okay, I don't see any questions. That means it's a good thing. We covered everything. Let me check the chat. I don't see anything. I'm actually going to unmute you for a second since there's only 5 of you. If there's any questions, feel free to shout them out now. Okay, sounds like there isn't. So we will move on.
Oh my God, yes.
Okay. Sounds like there aren't, so we'll move on. So Peter, you are an administrative assistant, so feel free to log off. Anybody else as well?
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, everyone. So this is perfect timing because Marley's voice needs a break again. So I'm gonna, this is Jen speaking. I'm gonna take over for a little while and just talk about some specific duties with the communications assistants. Fun fact, the photo on this slide actually was taken by our communications assistant in India this fall. So just to give you a little insight into that. So as I'm sure you have read in the handbook and we've gone over many times, the communications assistant, you're helping us gather content from the different off-campus study sites around the world. And this helps tell the story of your experiences and the experiences of other students. And so this is a really important role to get that really critical storytelling component, bringing it to the forefront of ACM programs, because storytelling is really what makes the biggest impact in telling other people. And so we're going to break this down into the 3 different categories that you'll mainly work in. And the first one is photos. So as communications assistant, we ask you to take your own photos, but also collect photos from other students whenever possible. So you're primarily responsible for doing the majority of photos, but if there's someone on your program who, loves taking pictures and wants to submit photos to you, by all means, please feel free to collect those from students and upload them to the Google Drive. So there's a list right there of some photo subjects that could apply to your program location. So those are just some ideas of things to keep in mind about taking photos of. And in general with photos, this is called out in the handbook, and I want to also emphasize it in the webinar. Scenic and landscape photos are really great, and we definitely welcome those kinds of photos. But the ones that we really prefer are ones that show students engaging in the culture and in the program. So, as you see here, any photos of students with their host families, pictures of students experiencing a class excursion and going to a new place, or doing research in the field. So things that are a little more active and kind of showing the day in a life. And so also please pay attention to photo quality. Just submit photos at the highest resolution possible. Unfortunately, there are no DSLR cameras available for you to use on site, but smartphone photography is, of course, more than fine. So we accept smartphone photos, and many smartphones take really great photos these days, so that's a really positive thing. And if you want any tips on smartphone photography, I linked to a couple articles that I thought were useful, which can be found on the Google site on the photo and document uploads page. So feel free to check that out. So in order to submit photos, you'll go to the Submit Documents page on the Google Drive, which Marley already showed you how you can go to that page and see the embedded Google Drive folders right there for your program. So simply upload documents to the folder that matches your ACM programs and drop them into the appropriate subfolders. The Other Projects folder, I will note, includes the information for that ACM website profile that I mentioned earlier. So you can find that information in that folder. And then anytime you upload something to the documents, just make sure to record your submissions in this task log so we can pay you for your work. This is probably pretty self-explanatory, but each photos folder, once you get into it, you're going to see that they're divided into months. So please upload photos into the month subfolder based on when the photo was taken. So don't upload it to the photo folder that corresponds with the month when you're uploading it, because since sometimes you'll be uploading it later than when it happened, obviously. So we're trying to keep it organized so we kind of have a concept of when events took place. And you can create additional subfolders whenever possible, whether it's based on event or the theme of the photos. And I will have some screenshots as well to kind of illustrate that for you. And if you're submitting photos on behalf of another ACM student, simply upload them, but make sure to title the folder with the student's name so that we know that it's coming from someone other than you. So here's an example. Please pardon my cheesy example. I'm using Antarctica, couldn't resist. But so under Antarctica, you'll find the photos folder, and then within one of the month folders, so in this case, September 2017, the student assistant would create different folders for each event. And so each folder will contain the different photos for all those different experiences. So it'd be really great if you could replicate this in your own photo upload process instead of just batch uploading them into one month folder. It just helps to break things up. We also created a photo description spreadsheet for you to log descriptions of your photos. And this is just basically to provide enough details so we have some context of what's going on in these photos. So each time you upload any pictures, in addition to marking it on your task log just to record the hours that you spent doing it, please also take a few minutes to just describe on this Excel sheet what is going on in these pictures. And this is just a starting point. You can add more rows or columns, whatever works for you to get your point across. All right, so just to do a little interactive session here, I was wondering if you all could post your thoughts in the questions chat. What do you think? I'm going to show you a few examples of photos that we think are strong. And I would like to hear your thoughts on what you like about the photos or why you think we chose these pictures.
The questions seem to be the easier option for you guys. Okay. All right.
Yeah, so we have this picture.
Dominique,
oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, it's clear what's going on. It shows faces. Yeah, this photo is really, really great. I like it because it shows kind of the actual activities going on in one of the classes, sort of active learning and just getting right in on that action. And you're right, it shows people's faces. It's a good angle. The lighting is strong. And yeah, also, Amanda, I noticed your question and about release forms, and I will actually cover that later in the presentation. So hang tight, and thanks for your question. All right, I'm going to move on to the next photo. So in this photo, it's kind of similar to the last one. It shows sort of the action and that active learning, students engaging with the local culture. It's well composed. There's not, it's not blurry or anything like that. It's in focus, it's bright, and it's kind of giving insight into the day-to-day life in India. Oops. And is same in this one. This was taken in Costa Rica, kind of showing students just having a good time, learning some dances in Costa Rica. It's colorful, bright, really clear. And I just wanted to show you some of these to give you some things to keep in mind as you're taking pictures. When in doubt, it's definitely better to send us, any photos you can take. It doesn't mean that I don't want you to feel like you can only send me the creme de la creme of the photos you're taking, but just wanted to share these few examples with you to keep in mind some good basic photo mechanics to keep in mind as you're taking pictures.
don't feel restricted, but send us everything, but try to focus your energy on these strong quality photos.
Right. So for example, some photo mistakes to avoid, I'll just go over a few that come to mind really quickly. Try to avoid taking photos in really dark places unless you can control the lighting a little better, because usually they just won't turn out and they won't be very usable. Taking pictures too far away, as you can see in this photo, it's kind of a weird angle and it's sort of far away. Not really sure what's even going on in this picture. There's lots of background distractions, so definitely just be conscious of what's in the background of your photos. You obviously won't be able to control what's in the background of your photos all the time, but it's just something to keep in mind. And as in this next example, sometimes you can't even tell what's in the background at all. As in this photo, it's really nice group shot, but you're not really sure where they're even standing, what's in the background. So and there's also distractions like the backpacks and things like that in the foreground. So just keep your eyes open and conscious of what's around you as you're taking pictures. And a word about selfies. I love selfies. They're fun. Believe me, they're great. But we don't always want all selfies all the time, because sometimes student submissions, we do get a lot of selfies. And so I just wanted to create a note to take a variety of photos, including some selfies is great, but just make sure that not all your pictures are selfies and we'll be totally fine. Okay, so the second component of this position is interviews. And so one of the most valuable ways that we can learn about student experiences on the programs is through student testimonials and interviews. And so, instead of viewing these, I know the word interviews sounds very formal, but it's really more of an informal guided conversation. And so I would say maybe about a couple weeks into your program, when you get to know people on the program and when people have started to settle in and get a feel for their day-to-day routine, I would encourage you to reach out to some people who seem to be really having a good experience on the program, or people who are comfortable in general sitting down to talk to you, just to talk about their experience. And so there's a list of interview questions to help you out that are specific to your program in the handbook, so you can find everything there. And so we'll have some tips on the next slide about how to kind of go about these interviews. So I would definitely say go with the flow of the conversation. The tips that the questions that we give you in the handbook are a starting point, and they by no means have to be the restriction, but feel free to prompt with follow-up questions and to just follow the flow of the conversation. And we also encourage honesty. It's great to hear about both the positives and the challenges of studying off campus, and that is meaningful to hear those experiences from students. I also recommend using a voice recorder app and then transcribing later if that is something if you're concerned about not being able to type fast enough. But on that note, also be conscious of your time and the students' time. And when I say this, I mean to keep interviews to a manageable length, so that if you do need to transcribe them, you're not spending 4 hours having to rewrite an interview, because that is not necessarily where I think your time should be focused, and that just sounds terrible, to be honest. So just be conscious of your time, keep the interviews to a manageable length, so if you do transcribe them, it won't be too much of an issue to write them down later.
You don't have to transcribe every word that they say. So if they are talking a lot about one particular topic, just transcribe the important takeaways from the conversation.
Yeah, definitely.
You don't have to transcribe the ums.
Exactly. All right. So Amanda, I know you asked about release forms earlier, so I hope that this answers your question. Anyone who appears in your blog posts or photos who are not affiliated with ACM, so this could be the people listed here, guest speakers, homestay families, etc., must read and sign a media release form. And so for most common situations that you'll need it for is when you interview people for your blog, if you directly quote someone, so using the guest speaker example, let's say someone comes in and you want to directly quote a couple sentences that a guest speaker said. it would really be important to get that person's permission to directly quote them in the blog. And so to have them sign a media release form. And if you also are going to include a photo of them, that is also something you need to have them sign a media release form for. And I would say, once again, speaking to Amanda's question, yes, I would say that a host mother or father should have a media release form signed. It's not necessary for, I know that this can be confusing because you can't always control, for example, who's in the background of a picture. So it doesn't mean that if there's people in the background, you have to have every single person sign a release form. It's more when there's people who are the main subjects of the photo. Their faces are very visible, and they're intentionally in the photo. That's the people who we need media release forms for. And if you have questions about that, feel free to reach out to me, because for now I would say get on site and kind of see what your routine is going to be like and what kind of experiences you're going to have, and then reach out to me if you have questions about special situations that I did not cover in this presentation. And once again, this is located on the Google site on the same page as the release form that you all and other ACM students who contribute content need to sign. So it's the second bullet, media release form for non-ACM participants. And that is actually a Word document so that you can print it out and bring it. Let's say you need to bring it to an event or you need to bring it to your community engagement site. That way it's very mobile and on the go. All right, so the third main component of the communications assistant position is blogging. And so this is kind of your outlet for you to be able to express your experiences and to show other students what a day in the life is like on an ACM program. And so blogging tips and site-specific topics are located in the handbook. And for your reference, feel free to check this out. Even if you want to check it out right now while you're listening to the webinar, the ACM Study Away WordPress link is right there. So feel free to flip through that later tonight. And yeah, we'll go over a couple guidelines and responsibilities with the blogs.
I'll give Jen a break. I have it covered. So you will need to submit about 8 to 10 blog posts over the course of the semester. Try to spread those out if you can. We understand in the first few weeks while you're getting oriented, it might not be as frequent, but also we want to hear about your orientation experience. A lot of our programs do some of the best activities at the beginning. Blog posts should be approximately 250 to 500 words, or 250 to 350 words in length. Sorry, there's a little typo there. Longer posts are encouraged, but not required. So try to think about focusing your efforts into being really succinct and to the point, but also providing depth. We encourage you to incorporate multiple perspectives into the program blog, be that reaching out to your administrative assistants to have them contribute or to your peers. If you wanted to do, some students have done spotlights on some of the faculty and staff. Other students have done a spotlight on a particular guest speaker. As well. One student actually was considering, but did on their homestay. Mother. ACM reserves the right to ask you to edit your post, so we review these. If there's any content that we think is an unethical or inappropriate representation of those being written about, we might ask you to edit it. Obviously, no swears or foul language, grammar, punctuation. Jen is reading all of these, and we can't proofread everything, so we really emphasize the importance of you proofreading your blogs. Paragraph breaks are all very important when reviewing your blogs. This also applies if you are reviewing other contributions. So if the administrative assistant or other peers contribute something, please be sure to proofread those blogs as well. And please be professional and respectful in your writing.
And another thing I will add in the responsibilities and guidelines is to also add photos to your blog. So whenever possible, adding photos into the body of the text is really great for illustrating what you're experiencing and just a lot more engaging to read. So really, really highly encourage adding photos in addition to your writing. So this is also reflected in the handbook, but the 2 required blog posts that you have to write are My Last $100 and A Week in the Life. So you can read the descriptions here, but basically the first one, My Last $100, is modeled off of a Billfold.com series, which is sort of like a money management blog website, and it shows kind of an anecdotal walkthrough of how a person spent their last $100. And so there's examples linked to in the handbook, and you can also flip through the ACM Study Away blog to see what past students have done. And so there's a lot of different ways you can take it. I want to give you a lot of creative freedom in this, but it's really interesting to show how currency gets you different amounts of things in different places, but it also tells a story of your experience. It doesn't have to be $100. That's just the prompt. If you would rather choose a different amount, that's totally fine. But that's the first prompt. And then the next one is A Week in the Life. And just the main goal of this blog is to catalog what your daily and weekly activities look like, just to give students who are interested, or even faculty and staff who are back on your campus, to give them a glimpse at what your day-to-day activities are like and what the experience is like. All right, so two small things I want to go over with WordPress. When you're adding a blog post, this is basically the editing screen that you'll see. So once again, using my cheesy Antarctica example, we're writing a blog post called A Guide to Extreme Ice Fishing in Antarctica. And on the toolbar to the right, there are a bunch of options under post settings. So you'll see status, categories and tags, featured image. And so the first really important thing with these blog posts is to remember to set a featured image. And this basically is the image that will appear on the home page of the blog along with the excerpt of the blog. And so it just makes it more, once again, visually engaging, rather than not having a photo at all. So please remember to set a featured image. And it's just, once you hit that button, all you have to do is it brings up a photo upload, just like any other uploading screen you've seen. And yep, so please remember to do that. And then the other important thing is to add categories and tags. So the only category that you need to check is the program location. And this makes sure that it populates your blog posts under that location. So if someone went to the site and wanted to find blogs about Brazil, they would be able to find the blogs that that person wrote under that country. So just check the box next to your program location. They're all pre-created, so you don't need to worry about creating them on your own. And then also under the tags section, please add a tag with your last name. And so the reason we want to do this is so that we can link to the blogs that you specifically wrote, because over time there will be a lot of student assistants who write blogs for, say, Amsterdam, but we want to be able to still link to specific students' posts as separate groups of blogs. So in order to add a tag, you just have to type in your name and hit enter, and then that makes it turn into that blue box with the X that you see. And I'll let you know if we need to do a special case where if there's duplicate last names. That has not happened yet. So for now, just use your last name and that should not be an issue. All right, and so we mentioned throughout this presentation that we encourage other students on your programs to submit content to us. And so we encourage you to encourage other students to participate. And if they do participate, so this means if a student agrees to be interviewed, if they send you photos, or if they write a guest blog, they can be entered into a raffle to win an Amazon gift card. So for every submission they make, let's say they submit photos to you and they write a guest blog, those are counted as two separate entries. And so they'll be entered twice into the lottery for the Amazon gift card. And then You are responsible for keeping an ongoing list of the students who do submit content to you throughout the semester. So maybe just on your phone, in your notes app, or somewhere easy at hand, just keep a running list of the students who participate, and then you can send it to us at the end of the semester, and we will enter them into the raffle to get the gift card. And as with your own blogs, with guest blogs, please proofread other student submissions for grammar or syntax errors. Since you are the one ultimately publishing the post, you're responsible for that final oversight. Obviously, please do not compromise any of the content and making drastic changes to it, but there's no harm in making basic grammar or syntax adjustments where necessary. All right, we're almost there. We've got only a couple more slides. And I want to speak to completing the release form again. And so we had talked earlier about the release form for participants who are not affiliated with ACM. So people who are not an ACM student who appear in your blog or your photos have to fill out a separate release form. And so ACM students who participate in an interview, submit photos, or write a guest blog to get entered in that lottery also have to complete the release form that you complete as a student assistant. So that's that Google form that we discussed earlier, and it's on the resources page of the Google site where there are further instructions about completing that. And this basically just gives ACM permission, once again, to use their materials for educational marketing purposes. And if students have questions about how ACM uses student-created content in its marketing, you can look in the handbook for examples that are hyperlinked, or you can always reach out to me as well.
One thing to clarify, ACM students don't need to complete the release form if they are just appearing in photos.
Yes.
Because they've already done that by signing the comprehensive release form. Exactly. So it's only if they're giving us their content to be used in marketing.
Exactly. Yes, that's a really important distinction. Thank you, Marley. All students who are going on your program have already filled out a form that basically says, yes, I agree that it's fine for me to appear in photos. So you don't have to worry about that. It's just more so if they write the blog or something like that, like interview photos, then it's giving us permission to use the content that they create. So the issue is not if they're in photos, the issue is just if they create content and materials. All right, oh, and I have a screenshot. So here's that release form for ACM students. So this is the one that we're asking you to fill out, as well as any other students who contribute content. And one last plug is to just follow us on social media. Once again, there's our handle and hashtag information, and feel free to share what you're doing throughout the semester. All right, I know that was a lot of information, and thanks for hanging tight and for staying a little later to go over that deep dive. So if you have any questions, feel free to type them into the chat box.
You can also email us at a later time.
Yeah,
we're really responsive.
Yes, this is not the only time you can ask questions, so you can always shoot us an email if something comes into your head later. But we'll be on here for, I don't know, a minute or two, and
Okay.
and then see if any questions roll in, and if not, then you can email us if anything comes up. All right, so it looks like we're all good on questions. So I think we're gonna end this webinar and log out. But once again, if anything comes up, feel free to email us. And thanks a lot, and we're excited to work with you.
Yes.